Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new episode of Stories from Space podcast, where your host, Matthew Williams, examines the history of human spaceflight, the breakthroughs that revolutionized our understanding of the universe and our place in it, and the brave individuals who work tirelessly to advance the frontiers of our understanding. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
The authors acknowledge that this podcast was recorded on the traditional unceded lands of the Lekwungen peoples. Hello and welcome back to Stories from Space. I'm your host, Matt Williams, and today we're presenting part 2 of my chat with AADYA Geo Talks, where we discussed how I became a science communicator, a science fiction writer, and also some exciting stuff about the world of astrobiology and the search for life beyond Earth and beyond our solar system.
Yeah, I agree with this point of view that, for astrobiologists right now who are working in this field, they have this biggest question: if life is possible, does it have to have an environment like Earth, or it can have its own environment? And that's why they are doing so much studies on Earth related to life in extreme environments, be it hot spring, be it other geothermal plants. So that's a big question, and even I want to know that if life is possible on other planets, like in different conditions. And what's your point on, life in general on other planets? Because I always believe that for general public, this is a misconception. When we talk about life on other planets, they always think about, aliens. They don't know the microorganisms or the microbial growth or the unicellular bacteria kind of life on other planets. Do you want to talk about this?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, because, as I said, the Fermi paradox is something that I'm very obsessed with. It's like, I don't accept the notion that humanity is alone in the universe, right? That seems like a preposterous declaration. And for those who say, well, we would have seen evidence of alien life by now, it's like we barely scratched the surface. We barely scratched the surface in our own solar system.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that we should have seen life out there, it's a very old argument, and it was made by people who were trying to argue we're alone in the universe, and it all came down to some pretty naive assumptions, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, life has been around a lot longer than us, we think. Yes, that makes sense. It's like, well, then somebody would have colonized the entire galaxy by now. We would have heard from them by then. It's like, that is a massive assumption. Mm-hmm. And given the challenges associated with space travel, and, given the fact that we can't assume all intelligent life out there would be motivated by the same agenda, spread, expand, it's like we have no way of knowing any of that. So, yeah, it's like we should really be enhancing the search. So yes, I do believe very much so that there is life, and of course the discussion is with the Fermi paradox is very much restricted to what we would call intelligent life, civilizations, and it's like that's even more narrow than talking about life in general, right? Because we only know one planet where life does exist and terrain, and that's Earth. And so we use the biology and the chemistry and all that we're learning about it, and there's so much we don't know about our own world. And extreme life is a good example, right? Life can thrive in all these extreme environments. So, let's think broader here. And yeah, it's like that is a limited perspective, of course, because it's the only example we got. When we're talking about civilizations, it's like, that has to do with one species, to the best of our knowledge, us, and of course with the past 10,000 years of history, as we've been able to reconstruct it based on written, oral, and archaeological finds. It's like there is so much that we don't know about that too, and we're learning more stuff all the time that's causing, archaeologists and anthropologists to push the dates backwards and forwards and stuff and such, and like, yeah, the large settled communities, actually they existed before all that, back here, and they weren't all farmers, apparently. Like, now that is something we didn't know. And so, yeah. So the only thing to do, right, it's like, yeah, in the meantime, we can speculate and so forth, but, and I do love how the whole field is really starting to open up, because it's like the more we learn about Earth, ourselves, and the solar system, it seems the more the range of possibilities becomes so much more. So the idea that humanity is alone because, somebody would have colonized the whole galaxy by now, it's like, that's extremely narrow. And I do think, I'd like to believe very much that, that there is life in general in many places that are nearby, and that could hopefully, very hopefully, in fact, I believe that we will send missions there someday, and they'll most likely be, small probes and propelled by lasers, like Starshot and similar concepts. It's like, yeah, so we will hopefully have those hopes vindicated, right? But whatever we do, it's like, well, we're going to find out what's out there. That's going to really expand our horizons and our minds and teach us about what is possible. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, definitely. So I met a micropaleontologist last week, and we were talking about life on Earth, like extreme environment and relationship to astrobiology. And he mentioned that, Bharti, we only know 1% of life on Earth. Forget life in extreme environments or life in general. Just we know one thing, that we have identified 1% of the species which are present on Earth. So we don't even know Earth species. So how can we, say that, okay, these are the required conditions for life to be present? So we don't know anything about Earth, how we can, just post a thing that, these are these certain requirements. So we don't even know what's there on other planets for us. So we have to broaden our mind and open our perspective that, there will be life, and we don't even know that, will it be an intelligent life? Because what's intelligence? Maybe it's different for us, it would be different for them. So they might be exploring things for themselves, and they might come to us, or we might be able to go there first. And life is like, it could be microorganisms, and it could be a proper human species like us. So we don't know, and we can't, rule out the possibility that there is no life, because if we can exist somewhere or other, anyone can exist on other planets or in other galaxies. So there's always a possibility of life on other planets, no matter how we find it or in what way we find it. But we will definitely find life on other planets. So continuing to your journey as an educator and science communicator, and I believe that as an educator, you have a limited audience, that is just students. So they have a proper mindset, okay, we want to learn this thing, and they come up with more enthusiasm. And as compared to science communicator, you have much wider audience. You'll be dealing with people of different age groups and from different countries. So what's a common misconception about space science that you often encounter among your students or among your audience, and how do you like to clear it up through your writing or podcast?
Good question. Well, the most common, I would say, is that this idea that space exploration is some kind of boondoggle, right? It's only benefiting, only the scientists care about it. It's not something that is relevant to, everyday people in their everyday lives, or to, or that it's not leading to betterment of society, right, and people. That, I'd say, is the absolutely most common misconception. And I see that because the question I get the most, and I've asked other science communicators this too, do you ever hear this question, shouldn't we fix Earth first, or we can't even run Earth right, why should we be thinking about going anywhere else? and also with commercial space, right? It's like, oh, this is only going to benefit the rich. It's just all of this. And well, of course, a lot of that has to do with Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. And it's like, yeah, I would not trust them for a moment with my money or my life. But yeah, it's like big picture here. Like not only, and to this, of course, I love explaining just how much space exploration has benefited people on Earth. It's like, do you know what came of the space age, the space race, right? Because to look at it from just the front, it's like, oh yeah, you had these two space programs, they were competing with each other, it was one-upmanship and all that stuff, and we wasted so much money, and meanwhile there was all this poverty. And this attitude, I mean, it goes right back to those days, and there was a lot of popular opposition and resentment to the Apollo program. And I thought, that's very interesting. I had no idea. But yeah, it's like you look at the spin-offs of it, right? And they created NASA spin-off to monitor these things. It's like, do you have any idea how many inventions that we take for granted in everyday life, especially medical innovations, that came out of that? And yeah, I think it was Robert A. Heinlein who went to Congress in the mid-'70s, and he spoke to them and said, you guys, NASA does great work, but boy, do you have a terrible PR problem, because he had just had open heart surgery. And he said, all the technology that went into that saved my life, came from the space program, right? And he named the specific technologies and how they were the result of NASA research that led to this. It's like, so basically us going to the moon, us putting men on the moon saved my life, and countless other people's. How is it people don't know that? How is it that they're thinking, oh, this is all wasted, or in their minds they're like, wouldn't this money be better spent on like poverty and housing and so forth? Yeah. So yeah, that alone there, saying the first space age, if you want to call it that, yeah, it led to all of these improvements in our daily lives, right? Microwaves, blankets, freeze-dried food, MRIs, CAT scans, defibrillators, air filters, and life support systems. All that stuff came from the space program. And right now we're looking at the future of space. It's all about how do we live out there sustainably, because you can't not live sustainably out there, right? The further you get from Earth, the more self-sufficient you have to be. And it's like, you know, do you really think that's just about living out there? Because living sustainably is what we're trying to do here. We have to. We're, starting to see right, it's right here in our faces at this point, right? That we're just basically taking and not even concerning ourselves about the regenerative cycle of nature. Yeah. So it's like, that's going to have, all that research is going to have so much applications here, it'll blow your mind, and it's going to be way more than we invest in the space programs themselves. And yeah, as for commercial space, yeah, there's a lot of billionaires who are crazy or just, very selfish or whatever, and they're doing this, but it's like the benefits, what we have seen and what we're going to see from all the reduced costs of sending things to space and research to space, and printing, metal printing up in space, and bioprinting. I just wrote about those things too. Yeah, it's going to revolutionize life here, and it's going to make it, and it's going to make it better. So, yeah, that is the biggest misconception, is that false dichotomy. It's either spend on Earth or spend on space. And yeah, in addition to saying there's all this just volumes of proof that show how life on Earth has benefited from space exploration, it's also like, why do we say that about space exploration? Because it's expensive. It's like, well, NASA spends 0.5%, or they get 0.5% of the nation's annual budget. How much of that is going towards the military? How much of that is going towards subsidies for oil and gas? Right? And how much money is the government wasting on a regular basis on programs that do nothing to benefit humans, that are actually adding to our problems? But go pick on them for a while, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with you on this, that, people are not really aware about the findings we are doing in space, or particularly at ISS, and testing it out on Earth. And it is actually helping, especially in the medical industry or in the agriculture industry, and then with the technology innovations and all. And I remember one TED talk, I forgot her name, but she's a geoscientist, and she said the similar question, that she always come across people who are always saying, you are a geologist, we don't even know Earth's geology, why we are going to space. So she said that, after her PhD and postdoc, she realized she got the answer, and the answer was that we are not dinosaurs. Dinosaurs died here, but we have the option to explore other planets and actually take our species and other species and the whole biosphere on other planets, because we know that geologically Earth will change, the climate will change, be it the solar flare, or be the meteorite attacks, or be the global warming. It won't be a survivable planet for our species. So we have to take care of ourselves. We think that we are the intelligent species of all, then we should be exploring space, and we should be calling other planet as our home. So I like that answer, and I really loved your approach as well, that, we should be working on the facts that whatever we are doing in space is actually helping us on Earth.
Mm-hmm. That want to definitely add to that there. In terms of geology, yes. I wish, I wish I could have been there, and hopefully thrown in a few of my 2 cents there too. But it's like, learning about the geology of other planets teaches us about Earth's geology, because the similarities, and it answers a lot of the questions we can't answer here, which is basically, what was it like billions of years ago? We have theories, but Earth's, it's evolving, so it's like we can't find direct evidence of that. But we go look at some asteroids, leftover material from 4.5 billion years ago, we're going to get answers we never dreamed possible. We look at Mars, which basically its surface has been perfectly preserved, with the exception of dust storms, but no tectonic activity, no rain, no severe wind and oceans, so no erosion of that nature. Mm-hmm. And it's like it is so similar to Earth too. We're going to learn so much about how our planet formed, and also you reminded me of an article I did. I've been trying to find a place to sort of shoe that in here, because I'm going to be interviewing the person who led the research here. So in an upcoming episode, I'll be talking to Kenneth Goodis-Gordon, and he's with the University of Central Florida's Planetary Science Group. And they did a very good study, and this is one of several now that have looked at this. It's like, well, we're looking for Earth analogs, we're looking for life as we know it, but Earth has changed so much, and life has been here for like 4 billion years. So we should be looking for Earths that are not just like today, but and it was really revolutionary too, because they came up with a lot of ways on how we could do that, like what specifically we should be looking at. And that was very fascinating. So it's like, what we learn about ourselves here benefits our search out there. Our search out there benefits what we know about here. It adds to it. So,
we're always drawing parallels, be it in any field with the space science, and that's what I love working in the space industry. That we all have this open mindset that we have to do this because we want to help ourselves on Earth, or we want to know about Earth, so we have to explore that field. So it always gives me perspective whenever I talk to other space professionals, and it comes to my next study as well. So looking ahead, what's an exciting project or topic you are working on, and how do you want to inspire or engage your audience with it?
Well, there are some that I don't think I can talk about just yet.
Okay.
But yeah, well, maybe some teasers. There, there is a series of essays that I have been working on for a nonprofit that talks about how there are several technologies that we have here on Earth that, on their own, they kind of tackle one problem, but add to another. Combine them, and you across the board, and you have climate solutions all around. And they have, they were inspired by a lot of space research, and they will have applications for space. And so it raises the question, it's like terraforming on Earth, right? Because people have asked me that question too. Can we terraform Earth? And it's like, well, we may have to, right? Getting our emissions under control is essential, but there's also the matter of, how do we clean up the damage we've already done? Because, we're at this point, you look at the IPCC reports and stuff, and it's like, we want to limit the global average temperature increases to this much, which is going to be bad, but livable, doable, right? With the right strategies and so forth. And it's like, well, thank goodness we got this, another thing here that talks about restoration. And anyway, because it's like we can actually repair the damage we've done. We can prevent that from happening too if we're acting consistently. So there's that. That is an exciting project. There's a podcast series that I did with a partner institution, and yes, it is still looking for a venue, but it will find one. So I don't want to spoil it, but it looks at life on Mars in the future, and it's basically people describing their lives there, and like how it would be to live on Mars in a way that we're not just surviving, but living full lives, thriving instead of just surviving. Well, I've been working on some books too, which I'm free to talk about. One of which deals with the Fermi paradox, the other which deals with Mars. Because, I prepared all these materials for a course about Mars and what we know about it and how our knowledge has evolved. And that hasn't happened yet. But I thought, well, in the meantime, though, these are materials that would make for, I think, a very lovely read. So I started doing that. And one thing that's always very exciting about these sort of things is it gives me a chance to do my homework, my research on it. And it's like, I know this, and this there, but if I'm going to write about it, I need to be detailed. I need to have all my facts in order, and that's proved to be very exciting. Other than that, the podcast series that I run, Stories from Space, got a lot of exciting interviews coming up. I hope you'll join me there someday too. And other than that, it's just sort of day by day and whatever stories come our way, and there's always some excitement there. So I've had several of these irons in the fire, and in a lot of cases it's just it's kind of like hurry up and wait, and it's like a publisher or broadcaster. You may have an agreement one day, but things may change. So, but keep that iron in the fire, right? Yeah. And because you can come back to it. And and of course, sorry, I forgot. In terms of fiction, I've written and had published 3 science fiction books. I'm working on a 4th. And a bunch of shorter stories too, and they're all kind of in a bit of a holding pattern, but they're too fleshed out, too written out for me to say. I've put it aside. We'll come back to it later, but I am working on one full-length novel that explores interstellar travel, which is something I always wanted to do. It's like my first 3 books dealt with life in the solar system in the not too distant future, few centuries from now, and sort of explored how humanity makes it there, and how, well, there's still problems and there's still issues and yada, yada, yada. And then I thought, well, after I've done that, I definitely want to do ones that explore interstellar travel and, yes, meeting extraterrestrial intelligence, especially one that's far more advanced than us. How scary and at the same time amazing would that be? And so, yeah, yes. Oh, and one other one, I was looking at the idea of what if humanity did become an interstellar species and spread throughout our local part of the galaxy, and then and this idea, this is something that goes pretty far back. It's got deep roots. I mean, Foundation certainly had it there. It's like, where's humanity from originally, right? It's like we kind of all look to this one place as the center of our current civilization, or okay, so I thought it was like, well, we've created a bunch of civilizations actually, because humanity does evolve as it goes out, and so yeah, they all consider a place the spiritual home of humanity, but they do not remember Earth because it's just been so long. And how would knowledge of our origins like that? It's like, well, if the records didn't survive, then these things would pass into oral traditions and mythology. So I started doing that there. And what was so cool about that was it allows me to combine another love of mine, which is history, and what we know and don't know about ancient civilizations, right? And it's like, what if some oral accounts actually are describing events that Carl Sagan spoke about, like extraterrestrial contact, or our stories tell us that we came from a place called Aztlan. That's what the Aztecs said, right? They knew that they didn't originate in the Mexican plateau, right, where they built their capital. It's like, but what is that? Just is it like a religious fable, like the Garden of Eden or something, or does this refer to an actual place that we know of only in memory? Yeah, and I've heard similar stories about like the deluge myth, right? The Great Flood. It's absolutely universal, but what if the sort of biblical narrative, which she traced to the Babylonian narratives, what if that described an actual event? And what if the Edenic myth described an ancient place that human beings actually sort of, or a specific civilization came from? And well, that's a very, very interesting idea, right? It's like, yeah, well, it's all steeped in mythology and so forth, but the basic idea was, people remember coming from somewhere else, and life seems so much better and simpler then, right? That's just the effect of nostalgia and time. Well, so yeah.
I'm so happy for all your projects, like especially the terraforming of Earth and planet life on Mars. But with the science fiction, you got me hooked. Like seriously, I want to read once they are out, and you are working on really cool projects related to science fiction. And I'm super happy that you were able to tell me before, because now I'll be waiting for all the books once they are out.
Well, thank you. Well, I happen to have. They're just sitting here. I don't know why I haven't put them back on my bookshelf, but this is the first book I ever had published, and it's called The Cronian Incident. And what that means, Cronian is an adjective for Saturn, right? Kronos in the Greek pantheon, Saturn in the Roman one. So that it has to do with Titan. Something happens on Titan that is now leads to a series of events that follow, and so yeah, they call it the Cronian Incident. This is the sequel, and this is my favorite of the three, the Jovian Manifesto, which has to do with well, basically, yeah, a manifesto, the events that follow from the first book. It happens on one of Jupiter's moons, Ganymed, as I recall. So there's that one. And the last, which I don't have a copy handy, is called the frost line fracture, which basically talks about how all these events sort of snowball, and now there's this divide between the inner solar system and the outer solar system. And that's sort of one of the elements of the book, how on either side of the frost line, life is very different for people. And at this point, though, it's like there could be serious hostilities and outright warfare if, if our main characters don't resolve the whole the thing that started it all. Yeah. And yeah, the upcoming one, if you're interested, the names that I've picked for the upcoming books, there is Transverse is the name of the story about the ship doing interstellar travel, and that's a reference to transverse velocity, where it's like if you're sending a ship from Earth to the nearest star, you have to take into account how, the stars are orbiting around the center of our galaxy. So you may think it's like a straight line, but you actually have to correct and follow that star. And so that's part of what they're doing. And the other one that looks at far future humanity studying its origins is called exogenesis, which is a scientific theory of, life originating out there and coming to Earth. Yeah. But I sort of do the reverse of that. Life originating on Earth, as we know it, and getting planted out there.
They're really good books, and I'm excited for all of them. And I'll be reading your already published work. And I'll also link down the book, the links where everyone can buy from on the description of this video. So that will help you, and that will help all my audience, because I'm pretty sure with the questions I receive, most of them are bibliophile and they love reading science fiction. So that would be helpful for everyone. Right?
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And just for your listeners, of course, I'm not trying to publicize. I'm just, sharing what's there. And yeah, the books have been re-released because unfortunately the publisher, they had to close their doors due to COVID and the economic slump. But yeah, I've re-released them because I thought for sure that they should not be. I feel like they still they've yet to make their mark, and
yeah, exactly.
Also give me a chance to improve on them a bit and expand them, because a few years after they're published, it's like, oh, I wish I'd done this differently, or I caught that, or oh wait, there's some actual mistakes in here. Okay, fix them. Yeah.
So that's true that artists never is satisfied with their work. Like they always want to improvise something or the other in their work. Is it true?
Mm-hmm. Oh God, yes. The first time I ever heard of that, it was Aldous Huxley. He wrote in the foreword of Brave New World that writers suffer from chronic remorse. Right? They're just always looking back and thinking, oh, I should have done, if I could, I'd rewrite this and that. The only problem with that is that, well, you'll be doing that forever. People, it's like strike while the iron is hot. Listen to your editors, always. They know what they're talking about. They do have good ideas most of the time. And then go with that. Yes, you want to make changes. Well, talk about what you would have done differently. Don't actually do it. I mean, look at George Lucas and Star Wars. He's re-released the original movies how many times now? Always with, changes and tinkering. And it's like, yeah, and people are just begging him to release the originals, So, yeah, it's like, it is okay to do revisions. But yeah, I mean, anyone out there who is thinking of writing, it's like you will never be fully satisfied with what you produce. You'll always want to make changes and revisions, but you shouldn't, except for maybe the occasional thing, People tend to love the original print and how it sort of speaks to its time in which it was written. Yeah.
You can always improvise, like again and again, re-releasing it. But yeah, the OG has to be out there. for everyone to
Yeah.
read or to see.
Yeah. If things have changed, that if your book is based on some predictions that don't come true, well, don't sweat it, and try not to obsess over that when you're doing like later installments, right? Because Arthur C. Clarke did that a lot in some of his books, because 2001, it did not happen in 2001, right? So the future did not unfold as he had predicted, but that was kind of the point. It's like the truth is going to be stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
So yeah. So don't feel like you have to retcon things, retroactively conceptualize, or whatever that means. Yeah, yeah, and yeah. Well, I've got a lot more advice for aspiring writers, but that's a whole different topic. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams, for coming to this show and sharing your journey with us. It was really insightful, and I've got so many recommendations on science fiction from you. And it's really, I always enjoy talking to people, and because of AADYA Talks, I have been enjoying this hobby of mine, and I get to know a lot about space science. And I always realize, after the talk show, that I don't know that much. So it's always good to talk to people and share the knowledge with the audience. So thank you so much for coming to the show and sharing your insights with us.
And that's the ballgame. Tune in next week, where I'll be talking to Shauna Pandya, a doctor, commercial astronaut, aquanaut, and a person whose list of accomplishments are basically mountain high. Speaking to her was a humbling experience and a long time in the making. In the meantime, thank you for listening. I'm Matt Williams, and this has been Stories from Space.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stories from Space podcast with Matthew Williams. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.